Welcome to season 10 of Low Bow Spark. We are counting down 5 episodes left, as in 5 episodes until I literally sleep for 6 weeks. Today's guest, in typical ADHD fashion, is up for the challenge. However, he does not have ADHD. Of course, I would start this out with someone that does not have it. So we're going to go with autism and OCD, correct? Is that
the main ones, especially OCD and suicidal depression as well, which is probably the background. So a bit of everything else. Although apparently I fit all the markers for ADHD, I just can't be asked to get tested.
I love it. So very happy to have you on here because I do consider you a friend. And while it is ADHD and resilience, we're going to go with mental health, neurodivergence, and resilience for this episode. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I've just come out of a charity meeting, so I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I need to get some caffeine into me, but that's about it.
I gotcha. Oh, and also for the record, this is also my YouTube manager. Posts all these videos. So if you haven't noticed, things have gotten a lot better because of this guy right here. So thank you for that. Jumping right into it, mental health wise, what are your biggest weaknesses with whatever condition you suffer from?
The I think that it's hard to say biggest weaknesses. I mean, the biggest problem of all of them definitely.
Okay, problem. There we go.
Definitely comes from OCD, which is weird because I know for most people they're like, that's like the least of the ones you have. And I was like, it really isn't. It's the one that's just shown in the media as the least, but it's not. Like I've said about it before, like OCD is the one that convinces you've done something, and at times it can be very difficult to distinguish the reality of the fact that you've done something from the reality that you haven't. It's just your OCD saying it, because you start to convince yourself you've done something and your OCD has just, and that you've just forgotten about it. Your OCD just does that. It's like, you've done this, you've done a terrible thing and you've forgotten it. And then you start to convince yourself, well, yeah, I must have done that. I've done this, and it's very hard, especially if like people try and play on your mental health sometimes, because it'd be very hard for you to then go to distinguish their toxicity from the reality that you may know. It gets really hard as well if somebody's, say, questioning your character, because your OCD can effectively start telling you, yeah, I am the bad person. Which, I mean, I've never purported to be the best person in the world, and I've always said, I'm an arsehole.
Right.
But it can be very difficult to distinguish sometimes. I remember I had the discussion with my mother, and she just went, "That sounds like schizophrenia." I'm like, "Yeah, it's OCD. It's just that no one ever describes OCD properly. 95% of OCD is intrusive thoughts, and I will preface intrusive thoughts, not impulsive thoughts." Which all you TikTokers out there who go, "Oh, I want to go and jump on something," that's an intrusive. No, it fucking isn't. It is not an intrusive thought. It is an impulsive thought that you're having. Intrusive thoughts is like, "Oh, I could easily jump in front of this train."
And that's a difference there with ADHD. ADHD is impulsive thoughts.
Yeah. You'll go and buy something. I'll go, well, I could just easily, stab this person. Like, that's the difference. It's
right.
Horrific. Right. It's horrific images. It's very much unwanted thought processes, which isn't always the case with, say, impulsive thoughts and ADHD. It's not always unwanted.
Right. But that's very true. Yeah. Sometimes the impulse works. Sometimes the impulse is a good thing. But is it more with OCD? Is it more like, is it almost a false world that you actually believe is taking place? I mean, like the intrusive thoughts, that intrigues me a lot.
It's not so much of a false world, because I think that's when you do move over to schizophrenia.
Right.
So it's not a false world. It's just it's like the ultimate definition of your mind playing tricks on you. It'll convince you you've done something, or it'll convince you that if you don't do something, something horrific will happen. So the question that's often used by doctors badly, if they're not trained, is what do you think will happen if you don't do this? So a compulsion from somebody with OCD of washing their hands a certain amount of times. And they will get the question of, well, what do you think is going to happen if you don't do that? And for most people with OCD, it can be, my entire family's going to die in a car crash, and I've already seen it happen. And that's the thing. Like
Wow.
you've seen what happens if you don't do it, and them telling you that's not going to happen does not stop it. It's why I've had issue with some forms of behavioral counseling, because they don't get it. They only look at the compulsion or that the thing you're doing. They don't look at everything else behind it, which is the main part of OCD. It's very much that iceberg. OCD, what people see is here. OCD what actually affects you is here. So that's probably also, OCD feeds into my depression probably more than anything else. Because when I do something, when I have been an asshole, when I have done something wrong, it is the thing that continually feeds me to tell me how bad I am, without, and how much that was clearly awful, and I meant it. It really plays into the worst assumption of your own character. It knows your worst parts, and it will continue to play into them, and it will show you the most horrific things over and over again.
So it's a lot more serious. OCD is a lot more serious than people understand, because because what it is, what I understand about it is OCD. Oh, I have to lock the door 3 times.
Yeah.
Or I have to lock the, like that. That's all I've heard. So it's interesting to see this perspective, because honestly, that sounds horrifying.
It is. I mean, the one person in the UK that really, like, they did a really good job at bringing this to the forefront was a journalist called Bryony Gordon, who has written a book about it. She was the first person that made Prince Harry talk about his mental health. She's, respected enough journalist. She started her own mental health charity now, where they do a lot of running as well. But she had, her OCD had convinced her that she'd abused her baby. And that she just like, well, what if? And she talks about it in her book, how she believed that. She believed that she had just done it, and her mind had just forgotten about it. Well, what if I just forgot? What if I just blocked it out? And it took her husband literally going, look, you have not done this. Like, it's not something you've done. It's not something you would do. I have been with you. I have been with the, like, it's not a character of you. For her to kind of accept the fact that it's not something she'd done. But yeah, that was her OCD. So when people go, oh, it's just you turn the light on and off, because and you're like, no. And that's why a lot of counseling sessions get it wrong with OCD, because it's treated the same as a lot of other anxiety disorders, because it is an anxiety disorder. But the problem is that they completely ignore the complexity of OCD. If I can't do something, I want to ask the question, if I locked you into a cage for 2 days and told you, like, and basically stopped you from being able to complete an OCD action, then it would cure you. And my response would, no, I would kill myself when I come out.
Right.
Like, it would drive me to a definition of insanity. Like, because what you've effectively done is put me into a cage, and from my mind told me that whatever horrific thing I think is going to happen has happened because I'm unable to stop it. That's what you've done by doing that. But that's not how people see it. They go, well, we've cured you now. No, you fucking haven't. You've just made me insane.
Now, there's no cure for OCD, obviously. Are there treatments?
There are treatments. And I mean,
and do they work?
It's hard to say there's not a cure, because I think if you are able to go a significant amount of time without having those thoughts or those actions, you could argue that's a cure. I went for a long period of time without those actions, because I was diagnosed with OCD when I was 9 years old. And I managed to go a very long time without them, 6 or 7 years. Basically because although I was apparently still doing certain actions, I had allowed it more to flow over me. And then when I went to university, it came back, because there were stairs that went in the same direction, and it just set off my OCD. And it's my ability to see my OCD. But there are of course there are treatments that with varying levels of success. It does depend, of course, on the person as well, because the severity of the OCD You know, I would probably class as being pretty low level, actually. There are some people out there that basically cannot leave the house because of their OCD. They can't
Really?
live a normal life. They can't do anything because, you know, I'm doing, like, you can't see as much of screen now, but I'm having to touch things in unison now because I'm talking about it, because that's when it gets more heightened for me. But there will be people that literally can't move through a door, can't touch something because they'll have touch it. So for instance, if I especially when I'm in a heightened state, if I touch something with my right hand, I then have to touch with my left hand again, because of course it's out of sync, but then my right hand again. But then of course it started with my right hand. So then it has to be my left hand, right hand, right hand, left hand. And you just get into a spiral. And that's me as a low level. So I get into spirals. So if you get someone that's really bad, it's incredibly difficult. So even going to a session to try and solve it would be problematic.
I mean, that's life crippling. That's life crippling.
It's absolutely crippling. Like, if I've had it before where I've basically ended up in hospital with panic attacks because I was unable to complete something. And when I came out of hospital, I had to still complete the thing, because otherwise I'd have ended up back in hospital with another panic attack because I still hadn't completed it. So it just completely cripples you. But
You've almost convinced me it's the worst mental health.
It's
disorder there is. Like,
it's definitely not, but it's just massively under explained. It's under, you know, the education behind OCD is just awful. Anyone out there, that definitely go and check out, I've forgotten the name of the book, but the book by Bryony Gordon. She's very, very open, and a lot of people with OCD, and I think even myself to a point, aren't as open, especially about the intrusive thoughts that you have. She is very open, and she talks about those thoughts. And
that's the thing that scares me, is the intrusive thoughts. Like that is something that I don't feel like my ADHD could handle. Like, if I had ADHD and OCD,
yeah,
those intrusive thoughts would lead me down an awful path. An awful path, because now you're combining impulse with those intrusive thoughts. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, one of the only people I've seen that's got it on social media was Call Me Chris. Because
really?
she basically played two sides of the same person. She had someone, you know, playing the, oh, it's just my, you know, I could just get up and kiss you. That's my intrusive thought. And it's like, that's not an intrusive thought. That's an impulse. And just went, my intrusive thought is, I could get these scissors and stab you 12 times in your neck. It's like, yeah, that's an intrusive thought.
And then the ADHD impulse comes in and says,
like, you know, there's no yeah. And the thing is that for some people with OCD, they've already seen themselves do it. They've seen that's happened. And if they, for instance, don't see that person again, their mind could potentially start to you know, to argue to them and state to them, well, you did do it, you've just forgotten, you know.
This is one of the most incredible explanations of OCD I have ever heard in my life. And I hope that people out there listening that have OCD will get something out of this, because you explained it in a way that the media will never explain. Lobau Spark has started a fundraising effort for Crisis Text Line. We have a goal of $19 per episode, as $19 supports one person in their time of absolute crisis with their mental health. If you would like to donate through our fundraiser titled Lauren's Infinity, the link is listed in the episode's description. Lauren was my wife's best friend, and loved by all who came into contact with her. Even $1 would mean so much. And that's something that I really respect about you, is you always do that. You explain things in a way that it's like, no one's going to tell you this shit but me. You know, I love that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's definitely of every issue I have in mental health, it's the one that plays into because my worst issue is, of course, suicidal depression, but
right.
OCD is the one that plays into it the most, because of course, amazing. if you let's say anybody with mental health will at times, as everyone will, in fact, not just with mental health, go, I'm a piece of shit at some point in your life. And it may be that you have been, and you're trying to make yourself better. I'm constantly doing that. I am constantly a piece of shit. I have said this many times, but I will always be like, right, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to be a piece of shit wrapped in glitter. Let's just move on. But the problem is that imagine having OCD, an obsessive, compulsive ideal, and you've just got into your head that you're a piece of shit. You don't just let go of that. Your OCD does not let you let go of that, because it just goes, on and on constantly. And it makes you relive that one thing that you did, you relive it over and over again, even though you feel genuinely guilty for it. You feel genuine, uh,
Remorse.
remorse. That was the word, remorse for it. You feel all of that for whatever you've done, from stealing a pound from your mum's purse when you were 5, or whatever it is. But your mind will continually, if your OCD decides that that is something you're going to be obsessed about, you're obsessed about it. And that's the thing, OCD changes. It's not that you're always obsessed about the same thing. Your mind can just go, well, you're obsessed about this now, deal with it. And so that's why it plays into your depression, my depression anyway, so much, because if you go, well, you're a piece of shit, it's your mind just goes, yes, you are, constantly, over and over and over again.
And I think that's consistent though across the board with mental issues like ADHD. Is the same way. We're constantly telling ourselves, you suck, you suck, you suck.
OCD relives the moment a lot. Like whatever
it.
you did, it relives it, it plays it because it obsesses on that moment. Every permutation you could have made, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? This is clear that you've
Amazing. So I want to shift the roles here because your strengths, actually. How has OCD or autism given you, or how would you like to put strengths? You didn't like weaknesses. It was a problem. So what
strengths from mental health, I think,
for you specifically, not generally.
Me specifically, I think it's weird. The same thing that will kind of make me obsess about everything that's bad will also mean that I will get something done until the point it's done. Like, I started playing chess as a child because it was fun to do, and it got me to get my my food first. Anyone that went to school with me will know I did it so I could play basketball. I wanted to eat just so I could play basketball. But then my OCD went, well, no, you can beat people, and then it became obsessed with beating everyone, and then I ended up in a national tournament because my mind just went, right, do it. You keep going. So it can be a strength. The problem is that even within that, it's also a kind of weakness, because there's a fine line between the way in which you can be obsessed that's helpful and technically the definition of addiction. So
oh, absolutely. I'm at fault for that a lot.
Yeah. So it's difficult. I think strength is definitely, I think the easiest way to think about strength in terms of mental health for me in general is for us to go a little bit back in time for a specific area with lockdown. Is that, I mean, I was in the worst time of my life anyway in lockdown, but also my mental health had, to a point, got me ready for isolation. It got me ready for things going wrong. Because I'd done that to myself already. I'd done that. I don't do, for many people that don't know, because on camera I come across as, very in your face and, extroverted. I'm not. Like, I don't know. None of my friends know where I live. I'm a very private person in those terms. I don't really interact with anybody when I go out that much. I have a set way of doing things, which of course goes along with autism and OCD. But I don't interact in the same way. So my mental health basically got me ready for the shit show that happened. Which is why a lot of people started talking about mental health more in the news and things, because suddenly neurotypicals had to start living like neurodivergents and realize. So
100% right.
That was definitely a strength. It was a kind of it was a mental inoculation against what was coming.
Well, it's like you trained the whole time by having these things to where when the game came, it was like, okay, I can fucking handle this. Like, I can do this.
That side of things was,
that's a huge thing. And going back to what you were saying about OCD saying you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you know, stealing the pound from your mom's purse or whatever. I get which I I can't say that I've ever done that. It was $1, okay? but but yeah, so basically for me, I guess my whole drive in doing this is I'm desperately hoping that people could say, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good, instead of you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. And
Yeah.
that's the problem, is that OCD won't allow you to.
I hate it.
I know, but that's, but you see my point on this is like, if your brain can do this and repeat it over and over again, it's possible that maybe if you get some momentum, you could repeat the opposite.
I think the problem as well is that because of the way that I come forward, I am seen by a lot of people as arrogant. Whether I want to be seen or I am or not is irrelevant. That's how some people see me, because that's the way neurotypicals act if they're arrogant piece of shit. And so, hey, I'm just going to treat you like a, that, and that's to a point, fair enough. They've seen that in traits of people in the past, and so they associate it with that. I get that, but the problem then for me is that, especially if someone's going, you're good, it feels too much like I'm somehow responsible for them pushing myself forward and showing and going, hey,
no,
look. But that's how it comes across in my mind.
Right,
that will always be.
Always. So definite. No other way. No other way. So you cannot see the other side.
No.
Okay. So fair enough. That's exactly the question, is if you can only see one side, then that's extremely detrimental.
Yeah.
Right.
I would almost rather be on that side. Like I know that sounds weird to people, but I would almost rather be on that. Like, for instance, I changed a lot of my stuff online. I took away the stuff that in my mind a cult of personality, because people either hated me or loved me and everything in between, when all I was meant to be doing was talking about and trying to educate on mental health. It should have nothing to do with me. And so I think that becomes problematic. And so it's much easier, although there is part of me that always says, hey, fucking listen, we're going to do this, we're going to get this done. At the same time, I don't want that to be because of who I am, because something shouldn't be promoted or looked down upon because somebody likes or doesn't like me. And so that's where I sit on that.
I get that. I get that. I guess my point to that statement is, the negative parts, the horrible things, the repeating I suck, that's easy to do. And you have done a lot of things that are really fucking hard in your life, correct?
Yeah.
So it is possible that you have done some things extremely well. And you have been good at things.
But that doesn't change. That doesn't change anything.
Well, it doesn't change it, but the fact that you admit it, actually.
But no, because it still doesn't change overall. Because me being
I didn't say it would change anything.
Me being able to do something after continuous outlandish practice just means that somebody else was better, and I had to keep going. So I was still the worst to start with.
You had to keep going. What is the title of this episode? Resilience.
But the argument there,
here we go.
So resilience for many people in mental health, especially say ADHD, autism, social anxiety, whatever, is through sheer want and stubbornness. With OCD, depending on the person with OCD and depending on the type of OCD, is because your OCD decided to make you do it.
Got it.
You're not
okay.
That's not for everyone. Again, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there with OCD. The resilience is within you as well. But for me, I will always go, well, OCD decided that was what I was going to do. Like, I used to wash my hands. So for instance, I used to wash my hands so much when I was a child that they would bleed. And then, of course, I would wash them more because now they're covered in blood. That's how much I used to wash them when I was a kid. He doesn't my OCD just decides to keep going, whether I want to or not.
This is exactly the kind of conversation I knew it would be with you, is because it's kind of like this battle. It's, I want so desperately to say, like, you're one of my closest friends, I love you, whatnot, but I know that some people hate hearing it, except that my style is, that's all I know. Whereas someone else, that's all they know is to say, I suck, I suck, I suck. So I have to get better at recognizing, you know, each person's comfort level. And that is exactly why I'm doing 6 more and then taking a break, is I am now in the knowledge I need to learn more situation. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's,
we all are every day. Like none of us
right.
none of us know anything. Like from
that's true.
From expert down to complete layman, none of us know what the fuck we're doing. Like,
yeah,
you know, from whether you're a first year, you know, first year student in Psych 101, or you're Andrew Huberman, who's a professor of neuroscience, none of us know what the fuck we're doing. Like, there will always be an exception for everything that we talk about, and there's always an exception within a specific person, because that's reality. I think that the problem that we always have is that it's finding what you've managed to get forward, and I think breaking down a lot of barriers, because especially with neurotypicals, but not always the case neurotypicals, it's other people as well, is that if they have decided who a person is and what a person is like, nothing changes it. So for instance, there will be, I'm sure, people that see this and will see me not wanting to say anything good about myself, go and see it as, well, he's doing that because it's a way of him, you know, uplifting himself. I guarantee there's at least one person out there like that.
So I'm up here in the woods alone with the birds, only it's peaceful. I want to give another massive shout out to the biggest supporters, because it literally does not happen without you. So thank you, Terry Shubilla. Thank you, Leo Guinan. Thank you, Kirk Hofstrom. Thank you, Casey Elliott. Thank you, Sarah Delano. Thank you, Justin Allingham. Thank you, Blushing Crafter. Thank you, Jamie Young. And thank you, Beth Jones. And I love you.
And those are the things we need to break through, because there are people out there far beyond me and you who could be so much better to the world if they were actually seen as who they are and accepted and interacted in who they were. But
that's exactly why we're doing it.
Yes, I know it's why we're doing it. But I'm just saying that this is the big thing that I think we need to get across to people, is listen to the words that are being said, because a lot of people, if you take away their tone, if you take away their you know, their way of presenting themselves or the way they look, and just put it onto paper, most people go, oh yeah, I really agree with that. That's okay. Yeah, I've got a good point. And then you go, Lobel said that, or Up said that. Suddenly one person will go, oh, I definitely believe it more now. And somebody will go, oh, fucking arsehole, I don't believe, no, it's bullshit now. And so that's a lot that we need to get through, because, you know, otherwise we do care, especially nowadays, we get far too much in cult personality, and around mental health, that is detrimental as fuck.
We do get caught up in personality, but I will say that I love my personality. I do. I love it. I love the way that I am. I truly mean that. The fact that, like, you and I can have this discussion again, disagree on certain things, agree on others, is the whole point. Just like you were saying, we have to get it out there that, like, just because this works for me or Up or whoever the hell it is, does not mean that it is going to work for you. You have to find that situation in your life that either drives you, motivates you, or sometimes forces you to get up. And I think you may have been one of the, actually, no, not may have been, you are one of the most get up people I've ever seen, I've ever met. I mean, for everything you've been through, you fucking got up. That's, well, you're here.
Yeah, but I'm here because other people managed to hit the right things that got me here.
But you're still here.
Because of them.
Okay. Doesn't matter. You're still here up. Like that's you are like it's not, I'm not trying to prove a point. I mean, it's just I'm just saying you're here. Like,
yeah. I mean,
and it's fun. I fucking love talking to you. I'm sorry. I love talking to you. Like it's my apologies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very difficult, and like you say, it's the reason you do this, and it's why you do these. It's very difficult when it comes to mental health, because people don't want to, even me and even you and everyone else, that we don't want to listen to the certain things that doesn't work for us, and that can turn us off completely to a certain way of doing things sometimes as well. And yeah, I think self-hate and things like that is very dominant in mental health, and people just don't realize it. You know, it's people will always question why you're doing something, assume you're doing it for another reason, and no matter how you interact, no matter what you say, how you do it, they'll never believe you, and they've chosen that, and that's it now. That's it. There's nothing you can say, do, believe, because the choice has been made for them, and it's very
100%.
difficult. I think that's also the case for probably me and you in certain things as well. We all do that, and it's unfortunate because we could probably learn so much more off of people that we completely disagree with, or that we in some cases maybe even hate. It's because they've done something that helps them. But yeah, mental health is so problematic, and I think strengths and weaknesses is very difficult. I mean, my immediate thing was to change the wording, because that's how that's the difficulty, and that's the thing in my mind, is to change even how it poses itself as a question. So
and to me, that's a strength. Your ability to change those things. I mean, I'm just saying, like that's a strength.
I think you'll find a lot of other people just be like, fucking politicians.
I love it. Well, we are keeping these short and sweet. So the last thing I'm going to ask you is, when was the time in your life that you had to be the most resilient, and why?
I mean, that was the death of my wife. Why? Honestly, couldn't tell you why. Because I wanted to die.
The perfect answer.
I
mean, it is. It's an honest, perfect answer, because no one can answer that question as to why you were so resilient. You just were.
Yeah, I didn't want to be. I think that may be a slight difference with some other people. Is a lot of people, they were resilient because they wanted to be. I wasn't. I stumbled into being. I don't think I could ever say okay, because I'm never okay.
Right.
The face and the expression suggests something that I'm not, but
me too.
Yeah,
I'm admitting it right now. Me too. Okay.
It's easier to be seen as a cocky fuck than it is to be seen as a child crying in the corner. But yeah, I think that's definitely the time that I've been the most. But I don't even know if resilient is the right word. But that's the time at which I've been hit the hardest. My mental health, my everything was hit the hardest during that time. But yeah, I stumbled into being here, which depending on the day, I still don't agree with being here. In fact, every day I'm annoyed that I am here. But that's a different story, and that's harder to explain to people that you aren't necessarily right this second suicidal, but you are annoyed that you're here. Because a lot of people, especially if they don't suffer with any mental health issues, won't understand what the fuck I just said. But
I totally understand it. Thank you for opening up like that. But I will say the one last thing, and you're going to hate to hear it. I am so fucking glad you stumbled into this because you have helped me massively in a lot of ways in my life. And we can beat each other up over the small fucking bullshit and our arguments and all that kind of shit. Who gives a fuck? I'm friends with you. I love you to death. I'm sorry. I love you. Okay. that's just
for anyone
the
out
way
there,
it is.
I'm because I'm his YouTube manager, I get to edit this video. So I can go to all of that shit.
And that's where we're stopping it right there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.